네, 용산실입니다.
왜 살려내요? 배가 침몰되는 것 같아요.
배가 침몰해요?
여기 제주도 가고 있었는데
예.
여기 지금 배가 배에서 떨어진 것 같아요. 지금
잠깐만요. 자, 지금 타고 오신 배가 침몰한다는 소리예요? 아니면 옆에 있는 다른 배가 침몰한다는 소리예요?
위치 말해주세요. 위치 배가 어디?
It began like any other day for the people of Incheon and Jeju in South Korea on April 16, 2014. But everything changed when the news of the sinking of the ferry MV Sewol started spreading online. With 476 people on board, the 6,825-ton vessel sent out a distress signal from about 1.7 miles north of Bayeongpung Island. As the ship was passing through the infamous Mangol Channel, a smooth early morning ride turned into a nightmare of death, destruction, and chaos. The sinking of the MV Sewol resulted in the tragic loss of 304 lives, including 250 students from Danwon High School in Ansan City. What caused the sinking of a ferry that seemed to be sailing through calm waters? How did a single tragic incident change so many lives in just a few minutes? This is the heartbreaking story of the sinking of the MV Sewol. On October 8, 2012, Chonghaejin Marine acquired a dilapidated 18-year-old ship from Japan, which they would rename the MV Sewol. Between October 12, 2012 and February 12, 2013, the ship underwent significant modifications. These included expanding the passenger and cargo spaces, which increased the ship's gross tonnage to 6,825 tons, but also raised its center of gravity, making it less stable. Despite concerns about the legality of these modifications, the Korean Register of Shipping confirmed that the ship passed all necessary inspections, including stability and inclination tests. The ship was officially registered on October 22, 2012. MV Sewol began operations on March 15, 2013, running 3 weekly trips between Incheon and Jeju. By its final voyage on April 16, 2014, it had completed 241 round trips. On April 16, 2014, as MV Sewol set off, it carried 443 passengers, 33 crew, and 2,142.7 tons of cargo. Among the passengers were 325 students from Danwon High School, who were on a field trip. The ship was commanded by 69-year-old Captain Lee Jong-suk, who was brought in as a replacement for the regular captain. Captain Shin, the regular captain of MV Sewol, had previously warned Chonghaejin Marine about the decline in the ship's stability. According to Shin, the removal of the side ramp by the company had compromised the ship's stability. He later stated that the company had threatened to dismiss him if he continued to object to the ship's conditions. MV Sewol was scheduled to depart from Incheon Harbor at 6:30 p.m. on April 15, 2014. However, dense fog reduced visibility to less than 1 kilometer, prompting the Incheon Vessel Traffic Service, or VTS, to issue a low visibility alert at 5:30 p.m. Consequently, the Shipping Association delayed Sewol's departure. The VTS lifted the alert by 8:35 p.m., and after verifying the weather with the Palmito Lighthouse operator and consulting with the Korea Coast Guard, the Shipping Association gave MV Sewol the green light to start its journey. The ship finally departed around 9 p.m., making it the only ferry to leave the harbor that night. On the morning of April 16th at 7:30 a.m., 3rd Mate Park Han-kwol and helmsman Cho Jun-ki took over command of MV Sewol from the previous crew. At this time, the ship was moving on a course of 165 degrees at about 20 knots, 37 kilometers per hour, with 2 radar devices active. Around 8:20 a.m., as the ship was approximately 2 to 3 nautical miles from entering the Mangol Channel, Park directed Cho to switch the navigation systems from autopilot to manual control. By 8:27 a.m., the ship entered the channel on a course of around 137 degrees, with wind speeds ranging from 14 to 25 kilometers per hour, wave heights of 0.5 meters, and good visibility. Despite the pleasant weather and the routine route, trouble soon began. Although the wider parts of the Mangol Channel have rocks and shallow depths, these weren't near MV Sewol's path on April 16th. Just before the incident, Park and Cho were at the helm near the steering wheel, while Captain Lee was not present on the ship's deck. At 8:46 a.m., while the ship was moving at a pace of 18 knots, 33 kilometers per hour, heading about 136 degrees, Park directed Cho to change the course to 140 degrees. Cho complied with Park's directions. What happened next varies in different accounts. According to Park, after verifying the change in direction through the radar, she directed Cho to adjust the ship's course to 145 degrees at 8:48 a.m. Upon noticing the ship significantly leaning towards starboard or right, causing the bow to turn to the right, she told Cho to turn the wheel to port or left. Immediately after issuing the order, she heard Cho saying, "The wheel isn't working," in a panicking tone. After this, the ship began to list. Cho's testimony also aligns with Park's. He stated that the listing began with Park's order to change the course to 140 degrees. Cho also told authorities that he was only instructed to adjust the direction to 140 degrees, not to 145 degrees. Since the ship continued moving towards the right even though he was holding the steering wheel, he made 2 left turns, which amounted to a 5-degree shift in the ship's course. However, the rightward turning didn't stop, and MV Sewol ended up on a 145-degree course. According to Cho, at this stage, Park instructed him to turn in the opposite direction, which he did by turning the wheel to the left by a further 10 degrees. This resulted in a total 15-degree change in direction to the left. When Cho made the turn from 135 to 150 degrees, MV Sewol started to lean to the left and towards the water. As a result, it turned a total of 45 degrees to the right, followed by a further 22 degrees over a period of 20 seconds. The cargo dropping to one side of the ship led to MV Sewol losing her ability to restore a stable position. This allowed water to enter the ship through the side door of the cargo loading bay and the car entrance at the stern. Captain Lee, who was in his personal cabin at the time of the incident, quickly made his way to the bridge. Soon after him, all the other crew members also rushed to the bridge. By this time, Cho had stopped the engines. However, it's unclear if he did so on Captain Lee's orders or at his own discretion. At 8:50 a.m., Cho called the assistant engineer in the engine room and ordered an immediate evacuation. With the engine stopped, MV Sewol lost its ability to alter course and started moving sideways. As the ship began to sink, both the crew and the passengers started making distress calls. Choi Duk-ha, a student from Danwon High School, made the first emergency call at 8:52 a.m. when he dialed the National Emergency Hotline and informed the Jolan-em-do fire station that MV Sewol was starting to capsize. At 8:55 a.m., the first distress call was made by the ship's crew to the Jeju VTS, requesting them to alert the Korea Coast Guard. By 9:06 a.m., the Jeju VTS received news of the incident from the Mokpo Coast Guard. At the same time, the crew of the Sewol started talking to the Jeju VTS as they were near to their location. At 9:23 a.m., the VTS directed the crew to notify the passengers to put on life jackets. When the crew responded that the equipment for broadcasting was not working, the VTS instructed them to individually tell the passengers to put on life jackets and additional clothing. At 9:33 a.m., following confirmation that the ships nearby had offered their assistance in the rescue efforts, the VTS directed all vessels to release lifeboats for the passengers. By 9:38 a.m., all forms of communication had been lost between the VTS and the MV Sewol. Roughly 3 minutes after the loss of communication, approximately 150 to 160 passengers and crew jumped overboard. The tragic sinking of MV Sewol claimed 304 lives, plunging families into grief as desperate search and rescue efforts continued for days, hoping against hope for miracles amidst the chaos. Immediately following the disaster, there was a national outpouring of grief and anger. The public was outraged by the slow and inadequate response from the crew and emergency services. The families of the victims were particularly critical of the actions of the captain and crew, who abandoned the ship and failed to issue proper evacuation orders. Captain Lee Jun-suk and several crew members were subsequently arrested and charged with gross negligence and abandonment. The sinking also led to the resignation of Prime Minister Chung Hong-won as a gesture of accountability and responsibility by the government. The investigation into the sinking revealed a series of regulatory and operational failures. It was discovered that MV Sewol had been illegally modified to increase its passenger and cargo capacity, which significantly compromised its stability. The ship was also overloaded with cargo, carrying more than twice the safe limit, and it had insufficient ballast water, which further destabilized it. The crew's lack of proper training and the failure of the regulatory authorities to enforce safety standards were also highlighted as major contributing factors. Chonghaejin Marine Company, the operator of MV Sewol, came under intense scrutiny. It was revealed that the company had a history of safety violations, and that corruption and bribery had played a role in the inadequate regulatory oversight. The owner of Chonghaejin Marine, Yu Byung-un, became the subject of a nationwide manhunt after the disaster. He was eventually found dead, leaving many questions unanswered about the extent of the corruption within the company and its connections to regulatory bodies. The MV Sewol disaster prompted significant changes in South Korea's maritime safety regulations. The government introduced stricter safety standards for passenger ferries, including more rigorous inspections and limitations on modifications that could affect a ship's stability. There was also an emphasis on better training for crew members to ensure they could effectively handle emergency situations. Additionally, the tragedy led to reforms aimed at reducing corruption and improving the transparency of regulatory bodies. The Korean Coast Guard was restructured and new laws were implemented to ensure greater accountability in maritime operations. Public awareness campaigns were launched to educate people about safety procedures and the importance of following evacuation orders in emergencies. The disaster remains a painful reminder of the critical need for stringent safety measures and ethical practices in the maritime industry. The legacy of the MV Sewol continues to influence policy and public consciousness, driving ongoing efforts to prevent such a tragedy from ever happening again. If you found this video insightful, please like and subscribe to our channel. Your support helps us bring more stories to light. Thanks for watching.